Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Financial Services Commission, FSC, loses control of Stocks and Securities Limited. Not in panic, St. James Municipal Corporation says it's ready for the hurricane season. And later in sports, depleted Reggae Boys squad for upcoming World Cup qualifiers. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters, and here are the details. The Financial Services Commission has lost control over investment firm Stocks and Securities Limited, SSL. This following a ruling from the Supreme Court today. More in this report.
The written ruling handed down by Justice David Batts has determined that SSL's appointed trustee, Cadian Campbell, has full control of the fraud-hit firm. The FSC sued SSL and Mr. Campbell last year, claiming that his appointment was in breach of directives and an attempt to frustrate the investigation of the multi-billion-dollar fraud. But the court has ruled that Mr. Campbell's appointment was valid. The FSC, which regulates investment houses, had argued that SSL's solvency declaration was flawed because it did not accurately represent the company's financial status and did not account for the fraud reported at the agency on January 10, 2023. SSL directors appointed Mr. Campbell as trustee on January 16, 2023 to pursue a reorganization of the company through voluntary winding up under the Companies Act. The FSC filed a lawsuit on January 25, 2023 after becoming aware of the move. A trustee is a person or firm that holds and administers property or assets for the benefit of a third party or beneficiary. The SSL appointed trustee had dismissed the FSC's arguments that the company was insolvent as at January 16 and pointed to a major capital injection that was underway. Mr. Campbell also countered that the FSC was aware of efforts to restructure the SSL and appoint a trustee. He said there was even a proposal for a joint trusteeship between himself and the FSC. Mr. Campbell is represented by King's Counsel Caroline Hay, while the FSC's case is being led by Lisa White, a senior attorney in the Attorney General's chambers. SSL is represented by King's Counsel Caroline Larmond, whom the court appointed as independent attorney for the entity after concerns were raised that the FSC, while suing the SSL, was exercising control over the entity's operations. The FSC took temporary management of SSL on January 17, 2023. Anthony Lugg, TVJ News.
The search is on for a new Chief Executive Officer of the Passport, Immigration and Citizenship Agency, PICA. This as Andrew Winter's contract expires today after it was extended in September last year. He has been at the helm of PICA since September 2016. The police in St. James have released the names of persons of interest for the parish. Commanding officer for the St. James Police Division, Superintendent Aaron Samuels, says the men are wanted for several crimes.
One is Joseph Mackenzie, OC-GEO. He is responsible for several murders within the Flanker and Salt Spring Floor Hill community. We also want one called Omar Largi, OC Not Nice. He's also wanted for murder. The third individual that we're interested in is Lico Maxwell, OC Junior. We want those persons to turn in themselves at the nearest possible police station. They can either come in with their attorney or with a justice of the peace or any good citizen who they believe they can trust and bring them in. We will continue our pursuit for them, so it's in their best interest to turn themselves in.
He says the police continues to keep a close watch on a number of areas. In the meantime,
we have still had our challenges. Last year, for the month of May, was over the years, May has been a very active month for the Western Jamaica, and we have seen an increase compared to last month, but it's a decrease compared to last year in May. So we are still optimistic that we will continue our reduction in murders. As it stands now, we have a 20% reduction in murder compared to last year. And we are pushing as hard as we can to capture some of the persons who we believe are contributing to the problems that we face.
Significant work is expected to take place in the north and south gullies in St. James as the hurricane season officially begins tomorrow. It's understood that silt is at the lower end of the North Gully, which prevents water from flowing into the sea. The St. James Municipal Corporation insists the gullies are the responsibility of the National Works Agency, NWA. But Mayor of St. James, Richard Vernon, explained that a number of mitigation measures have been identified. The requisite documentation was sent to central government for funding.
The managers of the city of Montego Bay are not in a state of panic. We have been monitoring the different mechanisms put in place to deal with hurricanes and other disasters. Just this week, the report from the National Works Agency says that they submitted the request to central government for funding, and it will be made available shortly. And it is not only for the north and south gully, but also the major gully that runs along the Iron Shore area. So that is another critical drain or gully, and it is something that they have made the assessment, they have done the assessment for, and will make the funding available to clear during the period as well. So we're not in a state of panic.
Residents of several communities in St. Mary have blasted the National Water Commission, NWC, for not honoring its commitment to provide the commodity. They say they continue to get monthly bills, however, there's no water. At a town hall meeting last evening, the residents did not hold back their frustration.
Last year, 3 months out of the year, I get water. That's it. This year, from this year start, I don't get a drop of water.
I am one of those persons who live on the hill. Now, currently, I see water on the line, and I have not received not even a drop. The last time I got water, the water was browner than the nurse over there blows. And it was in the pipe for 3 days. And from the water cleanup, I have not received any.
Every month I just get bill, no water. And I believe that is unfair. Can't pay for something I'm not getting.
The residents say they have been purchasing water, which has been expensive.
I have heard drought being blamed and the percentage given in terms of the reduction in the production of water. So you know of the problem. Do you intend, for example, to have water trucked to us who have been paying water bill and not getting water?
In response, National Water Commission, the NWC representative Richard Williams explained that the Hunstown facility, which is responsible for supplying several communities, was out of commission for 2 years. However, there is still a challenge.
Back in operations for the last probably 5-6 months. However, we're having severe drought conditions in that area.
He added that as a temporary solution, the agency will be trucking water to the affected communities. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is appealing to citizens to work with the government to address inflation. He was speaking at the Jamaica Civil Service Association's annual general meeting last evening. Jamila Maitland reports.
Jamaica's inflation rate is currently at 5.3%, which is within the BOJ's target of 4 to 6%. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says greater effort is needed to get inflation under control so that Jamaicans can have a better life. This as it continues to eat away at each dollar that is earned. He's of the view that improving productivity is the answer.
The key is that we must manage inflation to protect the gains of improved wages for workers, both now and what is to come. One of the greatest ways to control inflation, to buffer against inflation, is to ensure that productivity is increasing. So yes, we do monetary policy, we target inflation, but we must now focus on increasing productivity.
Financial analyst Dennis Strong recently called for a change in the government's fiscal policy in a bid to spur productivity. He said while he understands the central bank's position, the issue is compounded by inefficiencies in the services provided by the government. He highlighted traffic congestion and conducting business among the areas in need of urgent attention. Without transformation, Mr. Chung argues that a shift to higher productivity will not happen soon.
The next phase must be, how do we work together to improve productivity? And that starts, as I said, with a strategy, a management strategy. What is the leadership of the country going to do? What is the management going to do to ensure that workers can give of their best? And that is a part of our performance management system. It shouldn't be viewed as a punitive system, but as a system that helps you, that promotes. So the government has to invest more, and we have started in scholarships to get our people trained, and we're doing that.
Jamila Maitland, TVJ News.
And it's time for a break here on the Midday News, but stay with us, more stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. The Agriculture Ministry is once again redoubling its efforts to get more young people involved in farming as a viable business. Speaking during a recent tour of the Jamaica Producers Farm in St. Mary, Agriculture Minister Floyd Green said he's anticipating a major change in the sector. It's why the government is introducing a $100 million scholarship program to train more young people in farming.
Our direction is to engage more young people into farming. We are shaping a new face of food, and the only way to do that is to give them more practical exposure. What we want to do is choose the best and the brightest from our high schools who are doing things like agriculture or environmental science, and to take them and to guide them along their journey so that they will ultimately either come to work with the ministry or come to work with the sector.
Meanwhile, CEO of the Pioneer Jamaica Group, Jeffrey Hall, says Jamaica producers will be teaming up with the ministry.
This tour is to send a message about the future of Jamaica. Agriculture is a part of that future, and from our perspective, education is essential to agriculture. Agriculture is now about science, it's now about technology, it's now about engineering, it's now about math, and we wanted to demonstrate that live and direct for students of Jamaica.
Today was an amazing day. I'm glad that I got the opportunity to be here. They were fascinated. I know of some who were actively networking.
And it's now time for the Business Minute.
The Bank of Jamaica says the total value of currency in circulation last year was $279.6 billion. $279.4 billion of that was in physical currency, that is, banknotes and coins, while roughly $300 million was in local digital currency Jamdex. The central bank's annual report says the outturn reflected an increase of 18.6% compared to the 3% increase recorded for 2022. The BOJ says this significant acceleration in the growth of total currency in circulation occurred in the context of the new polymer banknotes being introduced. These will replace the old cotton-based notes over time. UBS on Friday completed the merger of the main parent companies of the Swiss bank and Credit Suisse, which it acquired last year after its longtime rival collapsed, putting an end to one of the bastions of the country's financial sector. Shares in UBS ticked upwards after the business announced it had succeeded to all the rights and obligations of Credit Suisse, including all outstanding Credit Suisse debt instruments. The parent merger is expected to allow the Swiss bank to get started with trickier stages of the integration, such as combining IT systems, migrating clients from Credit Suisse, and cutting the enlarged bank's workforce of more than 110,000. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Hal Shane Burke.
Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has called for greater support for small island developing states as United Nations member countries edge closer to the deadline for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. The country's Tourism Minister Carlos James articulated the position during the plenary of the 4th International SIDS Conference currently underway in Antigua and Barbuda. Minister James told world leaders attending the summit that in the wake of global upheavals, the status quo is untenable. He says there must be a call to action for the international community to fully commit to addressing the special case for sustainable development of SIDS in light of their unique circumstances. On the international scene, at least a dozen people were killed in 2 airstrikes Friday in central Gaza. 2 children and 4 women were among the dead. Palestinians in the border city of Rafah have reported heavy fighting in recent days as Israel's military widened its offensive in the south, seizing control of the entire length of Gaza's border with Egypt. And U.S. President Joe Biden has given Ukraine permission to use American-supplied weapons to strike targets in Russia, but only near the Kharkiv region. One official told BBC News his team had been directed to ensure Ukraine was able to use U.S. weapons for counterfire purposes to hit back at Russian forces hitting them or preparing to hit them. Russian forces have made gains in the Kharkiv region in recent weeks after a surprise offensive in the area close to the border with Russia. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Nakinsky Robinson.
And we head to a quick break. When we come back, Jeremy and Brown will have your midday sports report.